Welcome everybody back to another episode of Howling with the Wolf. I am Cameron Wolfe. We're back. I took a little week break because I had a baby. I told you guys that my wife was due. We had our baby. This is an ultrasound picture. She now looks a lot different, a lot more human-like. But we love her. Haven't been getting a lot of sleep, but it has been awesome. So now I'm kind of back in the swing of things, football-wise. Thank you guys for the congrats, and just kind of wanted to give you guys a little insight about everybody's favorite topic. Everybody's talking about Tua this week. Why isn't it Tua time? So that's going to be the focus of the chat today. As always, you guys can fire away any questions that you want. This is kind of my domain to kind of rap with you guys about what I think, my perspective, my opinion, my reporting. And we'll just go from there. So we'll wrap for a little bit. Tua, Dolphins, maybe some coronavirus and NFL talk, and then we'll get out of here. So first things first, and I'll kind of just jump it off. I have a question here that, I'm sure everybody's going to ask me. So I'll jump it off here from the top. Okay, so Brian Flores said this week that Tua, he stumbled a little bit on Monday on describing why Tua wasn't the starter yet, saying it was kind of injury related, this sort of thing. And then Wednesday he gave what was his kind of maybe his most clearest answer yet, and said that Tua wasn't ready yet, and he felt like Fitz gave him the best chance to win. So the next question comes is, why isn't Tua ready yet? Everybody has been panicking. Everybody's been asking, what does it mean? Is he not good? Should we draft Trevor Lawrence next year? Do we draft the wrong guy? Justin Herbert's lighting it up. Joe Burrow's like, I get it. Relax. What did Aaron Rodgers say? RELAX. Relax. I want to see Tua just as bad as you guys. I've told you guys this before, just being perfectly transparent. My job is more interesting when Tua is the starter. People care a lot more about Tua than Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's that simple. That being said, I actually don't have a problem with how the Dolphins are going about their transition and the fact that Tua still isn't playing. I know everybody wants to see him. I don't have any issue. The question about his readiness. So here's how I see it. First, I'll preface this by saying that we watched Tua, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Josh Rosen, I did, every single day in practice all the way up until September 1st. Since then, we've only been able to see the first 15 to 20 minutes of practice. So I can't tell you how Tua's been playing in every snap in practice, whether he's been playing poorly, whether he's lighting it up. What I can tell you is that from what I've heard from people, it hasn't been, strongly in one direction together. He doesn't look like the second coming of Dan Marino in practices over this last month, but he hasn't looked like Jamarcus Russell on the field in practice as well. So I think that you're looking at a quarterback who looks like a rookie who has potential, which is what we saw in camp. A guy who could flash and shows those highlights of why you drafted him 5th overall at times, but also shows why he's young and he has room to grow. So I don't think any of that is reason to panic. Your young quarterback is going to have some struggles. I think even when he plays, he's going to have some struggles. Joe Burrow's had some struggles, even though he's largely been successful. Justin Herbert, who was just named the permanent QB1, has had some struggles. So I think none of that's out of the realm. Here's why I think the Dolphins are right, which I don't always think the Dolphins are right, but I think the Dolphins are right in their transition because of this. You look at a situation where the Dolphins are not championship contenders in 2020. Sorry for anybody who was holding out hope. The Dolphins are not winning the 2020 Super Bowl. I'd be willing to bet a lot of money on that. So there's not really a rush. I do think you'll see Tua at some point this season. The question is when. I don't think it's a panic mode that in week 5 we haven't seen Tua. I do think that if Ryan Fitzpatrick continues to have this sort of play where he's, kind of more down than up and up and down, and, maybe you're, 3-6 or 3-7 around the bye week and Fitz is still looking like this, I think at that point you start pushing that button and saying, hey, we need to see Tua. But I think at this point, there's not a huge rush. Fitz still does have a better grasp of the offense. He isn't their biggest issue. Fitzpatrick isn't. So that's sort of my overall general view of the Dolphin situation. I have some questions here that I'll answer a little bit about Tua and just sort of his timeline. and then I can go a little bit more in depth. But I just kind of wanted to get that off from the jump. I don't think anything's wrong with Tua as far as his growth. I think he's normal and growing. And in fact, if I can do a plug here, I wrote a story on ESPN.com that I think would be very informative for a lot of fans about this situation. Essentially why Tua's time on the bench hasn't been wasted. A lot of times we want to see the rookie, the quarterback. Tua is the rookie quarterback, so you want to see what your big prize is. Tua is the Dolphins fans' Christmas present, so you want to see what you got. And I understand. I want to see too, but the time on the bench, it hasn't completely been the waste. He's learning. I kind of really went into detail about what this process is like, how the Dolphins groom him while he doesn't get any snaps. So look at ESPN.com. You can kind of get a breakdown on that. But I think that this time, particularly learning with Fitz and Gailey, is going to make Tua a better quarterback in the long run. Have a question here about Tua and whether he gets at least 6 games. So someone's saying that he needs to get at least 6 games in this season. So here's my view, and I'll probably do another story on this maybe sometime next week about just sort of what sort of we could look at as far as a timeline for Tua. So I look at the schedule, and I look at maybe 3 different entry points. So I don't think that he starts either of these next. I don't think he plays in either of these next 2 games, no matter what happens, unless Ryan Fitzpatrick, is terrible. I think you don't play him on the road against San Fran or Denver. But I think that you look at their next home game against the Los Angeles Chargers and Justin Herbert's Chargers. I think that's the earliest entry point where you look at a Tua starting. That would be the 7th game of the season, and Tua ideally would start the rest of the way, and he would have 10 games in his rookie year. I think that's a situation where if the pressure gets a little high, Fitz is still not playing well, everybody wants to see Tua. You put Tua in before the end of the month, is his team the rest of the way. Everybody's happy. That's the earliest point, right? I think there's another point right around the Dolphins have back-to-back against the Jets, separated by a bye. And Week 10 and Week 12, they play the Jets home at first, then they have a bye, and then they have away at the Jets. I think that's another entry point. Maybe that's the middle ground. You look at that point, and I think that's game 10 and game 11. That would have him in a situation where he's playing 6 or 7 games in the rookie season, which I think the question suggested. And I definitely think that could be reasonable, whether you want to start him before the bye, look at his mistakes and go over it and go from there, or if you want to give him 2 weeks to kind of get into it and then start him after. I think either of those 2 ways are. And then there's a third way, which I know Dolphins fans will hate, but it's still a possibility, where he goes the Patrick Mahomes route and essentially redshirts his rookie year. And that could be 2 versions of a red shirt. It could be the Mahomes red shirt, where you essentially don't play most of the year where it matters, but if the team is, in the Dolphins' case, mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, then maybe you see 2 over the last 3 games, and let him see him get his feet wet. In Mahomes' case, he played the finale of Kansas City's rookie year, and that's it. And then they traded Alex Smith the next year, and he became the starter the rest of the way. So I think those are the 3 routes that you could look at Tua as far as his readiness. I think it just depends on what Brian Flores and staff are looking at. I do think that based on their tone and their decision making, it seems like they're going to be willing to go to Tua sooner than later if Fitzpatrick struggles. So that's what I got on there. Let's see. Quick question on Byron Jones. Byron Jones was a full participant in practice today. I think he'll play on Sunday. Should help the Dolphins defense. They look lost at times without him. And him and Xavier Howard on the outside against a San Fran offense that doesn't really have any bona fide receivers, star receivers as far as like deep threats. They have some gadget players in Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, but nobody really to scare you as in the number 1 receiver. I think those guys should have a success against them man to man. Their big issue may be stopping the run game. Let's see. I got a question here talking about Tulane tonight because I'm a UCF fan. Okay, so Houston plays their season opener because everybody kept canceling our games tonight, 6:30. So I'm going to be off this chat in about 10 minutes so I can watch the Cougars. Go Cougs. If you guys don't know, this is the best team in the land, Cougars. We're going to be in good shape this year. Let's see what we got here. I got a question about the Titans and the coronavirus. I see you, Lewis. Let me answer a couple more Dolphins questions, then I'll go to that. Dorsey, Montana saying, give this young team time to gel. Only team in the league with 2 rookie starters on the O-line. Yeah, let's go into that. So let's play devil's advocate. As you guys see, I'm of the opinion that I don't have any issue with Tua waiting. Okay, so what reason do you have to wait? That's what everybody's asking me. Okay, what benefit? Ryan Fitzpatrick has been up and down. His passer rating has been poor. The team is 1-3. Why not? So here is the why not. As you mentioned, the offensive line has actually played better than expected, but they do have 4 new starters on that offensive line, including 2 rookies, in Austin Jackson and Austin Jackson and Solomon Kindley. And this week, we could see a third rookie and Robert Hunt starting if Austin Jackson isn't healthy. So you're looking at a situation where this unit is still trying to gel together. They played well early, but I still think they haven't played the elite defensive competition yet that's going to truly test them and determine whether or not they're a good offensive line. So I do think there's a little bit of hesitancy in putting Tua behind an O-line that isn't really set yet. I think that Tua is healthy, and here's where people kind of get confused about the health thing. I think Tua is 100% healthy, but that doesn't mean that he's 100% free of any injury past worry. What I mean by that is he hasn't been hit on that hip yet, and there's no preseason games for him to truly know how it's going to feel throughout a whole game action. He played a scrimmage. I watched a scrimmage with him and Josh Rosen, each playing a half in late August. And just being honest, neither of them look great. They look kind of iffy. They each turned the ball over at least once. A couple other passes could have been intercepted. Tua didn't look like he was hampered, but he didn't look like he was fluid, the Tua from Alabama yet. And again, this is all normal. He's a rookie. But I think a lot of people expect him to come in and look like the quarterback that he was in college, and I don't think that's going to be the case just yet. So I think a lot of what you're seeing Brian Flores do, and maybe he could have articulated it a little better this week early on, but I think he's trying to protect his quarterback from sort of the expectations and the unknown early on. So I think that he wants a little bit more time, and he wants to be in a position where Tua is no doubt the only choice. So right now it might be up in the air. Right now you might say, hey, Fitz knows the offense better. Tua's a little bit more talented. Where do we go? I think he wants it to be clear to him that, hey, it's time for Tua. Because unlike last year with Josh Rosen, you can't push the rewind with your franchise quarterback. Last year, Josh Rosen started week 3, and then they benched him again in week 5 after he struggled. There's no benching Tua. When you put Tua in, it's Tua's team for good. So you need to be sure. So I think that you're looking at a situation where they just want to feel comfortable. It's been 10.5 months since that hip injury, devastating hip injury. I think they want it to be closer to a year, just to feel a little bit more comfortable with that. Whether or not that's babying him, whether or not, I don't know. Like, everybody can have different perspectives of it, but this is a team that drafted him number 5 overall for him to be their franchise quarterback for the next 10, 15, 20 years, not just for 2020. So that's my view on it. But I understand why everybody feels like, hey, we want to see him play. Why not? So that's kind of my view on that. Let's see. Which Dolphins group is having the best season yet? And I say, let's see. So I actually thought going in the defensive backs and particularly the cornerbacks would be the best group on the team. Byron Jones' injury really hurt them. And they've actually been pretty exposed in that area. Noah Igbenogany, who was probably the most impressive rookie all camp, in my opinion, has been getting exposed. And it's kind of been eye-opening. So it's definitely not the DBs at this point. But I can say that I think the thing that's impressed me most is not necessarily the highs of a position group, but that there hasn't been any glaring lows. So like last year, the offensive line was terrible. The worst offensive line in the league. Last year, the run game was terrible. The worst run game in the league. There's nothing on this Dolphins team that you can say that's worse in the league right now. Their offensive line's improved. Their run game is improved, even though it's Myles Gaskin and not Matt Breida and Jordan Howard leading the way. And, even though their run defense is improved as well, it's not to the level they want it to be, but it's improved. So there's not an elite group on this team. I don't even know if I could call a best group, to be honest. But I do think that they're improved on the weakest points of their team. So they're more closer to league average on everything rather than the bottom on everything, if that makes sense. So let's go. Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase would be a really nice playmaker on this team. I'm going to answer this Titans question, and then, like I said, a few more minutes. I'll take a few more of your guys' questions. I'll quickly tell you guys what I think about this Dolphins 49ers game this week, and then we'll call it a wrap. So Luis Velasquez, one of my Titans fans who's been on this one for a jump, is asking about the Titans. He said, should the rest of the NFL be hating on the Titans, and do you think the NFL really had a plan for the outbreak? So I'll say this for two things. So I've talked to a few people in Tennessee, and first of all, I hope everybody's healthy out there. It's really scary. Like, this coronavirus thing has been scary because there's a lot of unknown, and I know everybody tried to turn this political about whether or not it's a big deal or not, and whether or not mask and all this thing. So I know that over 200,000 people died from this thing. I know that it can get anybody at any time, and you don't absolutely have to be doing the wrong thing to catch it. So for me, that's scary. That being said, I don't know everything that's going on in Tennessee, but some of the reporting that I've seen done down there, my guy Teron Davenport has been doing some reporting down there for ESPN. I know Paul Kaharski did some reporting down there on stories, and it seems like the Titans aren't necessarily innocent in this whole deal. They kind of had some workouts that they weren't supposed to be doing. They kind of, maybe had a factor in this. They weren't wearing masks properly in this whole ordeal. So I definitely think that there is, for this whole thing to work, people have to be all in on making it work. So I definitely think there likely is and probably should be some punishment for the Titans for not following the certain rules. That being said, that we're in a pandemic, and I don't know that the NFL is deserves to put their hands up and say we did everything right and it was just the Titans or just this team. The NFL is trying to force its way through a pandemic. This is something that we've talked about from the jump. I knew that the season was going to start. I wasn't sure if it was going to finish. This is something unheard of. Obviously, we love football. We want football. My job revolves around football, so I want it to be there. But the safety of these people involved in the sport is something that the NFL is really putting in jeopardy by making this league happen. So it's not like, hey, we follow all these protocols and we're good. It doesn't work that way. So I do think that the NFL has a plan, but the problem is, as a famous boxer once said, is everybody has a plan until you get hit. So now the NFL's been hit, and how do you respond to that? So that's really what we're seeing going forward. We're seeing the Titans going through this outbreak. We're seeing some Patriots have some issues, the Raiders, the Chiefs, a few different teams. So how the NFL responds to this, whether they replace games, cancel, forfeit, I think it's going to be really a testament to how we go going forward, because the Titans are going to be the last team that has an outbreak. And I think, whether the NFL season finishes or not is going to be dependent on how the NFL handles these situations. First of all, the NFL was wrong to play the Patriots-Chiefs game just 2 days after Cam Newton tested positive. So the NFL isn't absolved in all of these issues. So that's kind of my view on that. Appreciate the question, Lewis, and hope you're doing well out there. I see Denver and New England just got rescheduled until Monday night. So I guess they're trying to push it off a little further. But kicking the ball down the road one day isn't going to save people from getting infected from the virus. So that's just kind of my view on that. A couple more questions, and then, like I said, I'm going to get out of here. 6:29. Got to watch my Cougars whoop on some booty. Let's see. I got faded CJM. Do you think we'll be able to have a good running game against the 49ers? And then Roberto, 1979-69, said thoughts on the season coaching staff. So I'll end it with these two questions back to back. I'll be able to do a little 49ers preview, and I'll talk about the coaching staff. Before I do that, thank you guys, as always, for joining this chat. Again, I started this a few years ago as a way just kind of rap and give you guys a little insight of things I can't write on ESPN.com or can't write on Twitter or can't say on SportsCenter. So this is kind of a little insight and just me rapping with you guys. So I appreciate you guys joining as always. Share, subscribe, tell all your fans, NFL fans, Dolphins fans, and that we rapping the real on these. So we put these up on YouTube day after or weekend after. So you can always follow them if you can't catch the live chat. That being said, first question about the 49ers game plan. Are they going to be able to run the ball? So I watched all of the game last week the 49ers played against the Eagles, and the Eagles had a lot of success in the first half running the ball with Miles Sanders and being able to get the 49ers to commit to the run game. And that was from a team that had, some high school players playing receiver, essentially. So I think the Dolphins have to really establish the run early. So I know we spent a lot of the first quarter of the season asking why Matt Breida hasn't been getting more snaps, why Jordan Howard hasn't gotten more snaps. I think the question now should be, how can we maximize Myles Gaskin? Because he has been the guy, and I think he'll continue to be more of the guy going forward. He's been impressive. I think you're going to see a lot of Myles Gaskin this week. But my bold prediction this week is that Matt Breida breaks a big one. It's his former team, San Francisco 49ers, is a team that he used to play for. He got traded here draft weekend. I think he's due a big one. We saw him kind of break off some of the explosive plays a little bit, over the last couple of games. I think he's due. I think him and Myles Gaskin have a pretty solid day, and that keeps the 49ers Dolphins game close. I think it's a 9-point spread for those people who are involved in those type of activities. I don't think that the 49ers cover. I think the 49ers probably edge out the Dolphins this game, but I don't think they cover. And I think Matt Breida and Myles Gaskin having success on the ground is a big reason why. Last question on the coaching staff. So I always feel weird, giving positive reviews about the coaching staff when they have a losing record the way they do. They went 5-11 last year. They're 1-3 this year. They haven't won, and at the end of the day, winning matters more than anything. So I was always going to judge this coaching staff based on what they did compared to their talent. I thought this team would be a 6-10, 7-9 team. Right now they're 1-3. So right now they're on track to be 4-12. So right now they're below my expectations. And I think that coaching is a part of it. I think they were outcoached in week 1 and week 2. I think they outcoached Jacksonville in week 3. And then last week I think they were actually pretty even. I think they got beat straight up by Seattle, and it wasn't a coaching issue. I think that Seattle was just simply better than them. So right now in games, particularly coaching matchups, I think they've clearly won one matchup, clearly lost 2 matchups in terms of coaching, and tied in the other. So I think that when you look at this team, and particularly with Brian Flores, they seem to play hard, and they seem to play, at a level where they're always in a game compared to the first half of last year. And that's something that you commend a team for. But at some point, you have to learn how to win close games and win games that you're not necessarily supposed to. So that, for me, is the next step for this team. Red zone offense. They sucked last week at red zone offense. That's something that you have to coach better. Situational football. And that's something that I'm looking at them. You got to coach in situations where that are going to be decision-making of winning and losing the game. So that's something that I'm critical of the coaching staff on. Offensive creativity. They're 29th in NFL in motion before snap. I need to see more creativity, more motion. Motion is the enemy of linebackers because they get out of position. They get they expose what the defensive play call is. I want to see more of that. So I would say that right now I would give the coaching staff a C-, maybe a D+ so far this year. I do think that Brian Flores is the right coach, but so far I haven't been super impressed about what they've done in an in-game situation as far as the coaching staff. So that's kind of my view there. As always, thank you guys for rapping with me, and I'll see you guys back here next week, same time, same platform, and we'll do it again.